The Spoken Token is a proud member of the Pod Studio One podcast network. Hello, everybody, and welcome into the big show. I am Larry Neal.
Hey, and I'm Alex Wallace.
And we are the Spoken Token podcast.
And I have a really important special announcement that everyone needs to know.
You're on the line, Jay.
I know.
You're super close.
But tomorrow is Carl's birthday.
I'll allow it.
Yes. So from the Spoken Token, Carl, we wish you happy birthday.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
And then our mics go completely out.
Carl is turning 31.
Let
me turn the mic up.
That's right.
I knew how to get the mic back.
That's right.
So, Mr. Alex, sir, otherwise, how are you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing awesome. As much as I would love to talk about what I've been doing in the board gaming world as of late, I'm super excited to get into the show, and I don't even want to waste any more time.
I'm cool with that. We have a guest I am so excited about. And so why don't we let our guest introduce himself, and we're going to get away with the show.
Hi, I'm Chris Anderson. I'm the host of the Board Game Workshop podcast and design contest, as well as the designer of Vino, Morte, and a couple other games that you may or may not have heard of.
Oh, we're going to talk about
happy birthday, Carl.
Carl says happy birthday.
He says thank you. All right, so with that, we're going to go and do our short intro, and then we're going to come right back with Mr. Chris Anderson. Hello, and welcome to the Spoken Token Podcast, episode number 89. This time, Alex and Larry talk with Chris Anderson for an extended interview, all about game design and all things games. So, sit back, relax, crack open a box and smell that new game scent, and turn us up as we join our hosts, Alex Wallace and Larry Neal.
And we're back with the Vino Morte fan club, which would be Alex and Larry. Chris, I don't know if you did any research on us whatsoever, which I wouldn't be sad if you didn't, and I wouldn't hold it against you, because we got a really deep catalog, and it's pretty hit or miss. But there is one thing that we have had in common over the last 5 years of our podcast, and that is probably that we have talked about Vino Morte more than any other game. And I'm not even.
It's up there.
It's not even hyperbole.
It's not even hyperbole.
Yeah, like Vino Morte is probably the game that we have referenced more than any other game on this podcast.
It's pretty
and
close,
so it's kind of surreal that we are actually talking to you, because it's one of those things, like in my brain, like you're this kind of like Vlada type, Knizia, just like living in your ivory tower. Because we love the game so much. I know, and granted, if you've listened to us, we say we're really positive about a lot of games, but we genuinely love your game.
Right. And I'm looking forward to digging into it. And I want to say, too, first of all, thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
For answering.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, he answered me on, I think it was Twitter initially. We were talking about it when you finally got your copy. And you had said something, and I think I posted it on Twitter that, Alex finally got his copy. And Chris answered me directly. He's like, hey, Button Shot should have them. And if you don't have copies, then let me know. And I'm like, we're good. But hey, since we're talking, can you maybe come on the show?
Thank you, person who we idolize.
Right. And then he was like, sure. And I was like, what? We got to work it out. So I really appreciate you coming.
You've created our favorite 18-card wallet-sized game.
Oh, and it's fantastic. So why don't we just give you a moment? I know you've already introduced yourself there before we did the intro, but why don't you just tell everybody or give everybody kind of an intro of what you want them to know about you off the top. We're going to get into some stuff later, but I want to give you some space.
Me personally, as a human?
Sure.
Oh, yes, please. I need to know likes, colors.
See, Alex has made it creepy. Alex, you be quiet.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Blue. Got to go with blue for colors.
Larry doesn't like that. Larry's a green man.
I'll allow it.
Green is solid. It's the neighbor of blue. I mean, as long as we're staying away from red and yellow, and
those are my
thank
colors.
you.
Nice, calm colors. But I'm a game designer. I'm, like I said before the show, I run a TV studio at a high school, so that's an interesting life to live, working with high school students.
Oh, I bet.
I'm part of the design community up here in Massachusetts, and I run a game design contest, which hopefully we can talk a bit about.
Oh,
and
yes.
And I designed Vino Morte, which is still way more popular than I ever expected. So we can go into the story of creating that.
Yes, please. I was going to start with that. You go right ahead.
And I really appreciate that you guys like it so much. That's great to hear. And that's so I have listened to the last 3 episodes of your podcast. just to catch up and get used to your style. And I love your energy. This is like a super high energy podcast, so that's fun to listen to. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm listening to about 35
Holy
podcasts
smokes.
currently.
Wow, you got me beat
I listen
before
at
the
triple speed on my 3-hour a day commute.
Okay.
I had to slow you guys down to double speed.
I have to imagine that, like, I am at triple speed, I'm a chipmunk, and Larry is still deep voiced, and it's like,
That
It
was
balances
probably
out
the
the
quote of
pitch,
the
so
show.
it sounds normal. It cuts out all the gaps.
Yeah.
But
and
I
all
get
of
through a lot
us,
of podcasts.
all of us chuckling. There's lots of chuckling.
So what was the initial inspiration for Vino Morte? I would love to hear that story.
And but actually, before you get into that, if you are like secretly hiding the fact that you've maybe tried to poison family members, you can avoid that piece of it.
You had to bring that up.
I'm just saying, we're not here.
Well, now that you mention it,
we're,
geez.
we're not here to get you in trouble
I've
with the
never
law.
intentionally tried to poison a family member.
Yeah, you just poured poison in the wine and passed it around.
I mean, sometimes the milk got a little old and I passed it out anyway, but that's life. But no, so in Vino Morte, I think you're familiar with Button Shy Games in general.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are now. They've really blown up after the last couple Kickstarters and stuff. They're doing very well, up to, I think they're in the mid 60s for wallet games, which is really impressive. They put one out a month.
Yeah.
How absurd is that? Putting out a new game every month.
Right.
But years ago, back in 2016, maybe 2015, they had their first design contest. I was not super familiar with them at the time. I think hearing about the design contest was maybe my first hearing about them, and started backing their Kickstarters. And I was like, oh, I'm going to enter the design contest. 18 cards sounds like an interesting thing. So I started designing games. And initially I thought 18 cards is really hard. You can't do so much with it, which is what a lot of people think. Obviously, that's not true. They've got 67 games out and a lot more that they haven't published.
Right.
I ended up designing maybe 14 or 15 games for the contest and submitting 10 of them. I rushed through a lot of it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing that for any contest because you really can't put the effort into all of them, which I didn't. And the one I put the least effort into was in Vino Morte. I did not play test it at all.
What?
I had never played it until I got my published copy. So,
Amazing.
while I am technically the designer, it's more like I discovered it and just sort of passed it off.
Got it.
So I entered it in the contest with 9 other games, which I thought were better. Apparently, they were not. None of them did well in the contest, so nothing got to the finals where they actually play things. But in Vino Morte interested one judge enough that he brought it to the judging day. Said, "Oh, you got to check this out." They did, and they really enjoyed it. And they so in addition to their wallet games, they have something called the Board Game of the Month Club, where they'll send you a little envelope and it has what they call nano games, so usually 9 cards or less, or expansions, postcard games and stuff, which I've designed other stuff in that line, which are really hard to get because they're very limited release.
Right.
So in Vino Morte was originally released as an 8-card game for that line because it's only wine and poison. You can cut it in half, and it's basically the same game.
Right.
So they did that, came out as a nano game. It was relatively popular, I guess, from that release, although that's still a super small market of people that are already subscribed. But the thing that got it to move up to a wallet game was that it's only 2 different cards. So it's incredibly easy to print in the spaces of other games' print runs.
Oh.
So if there's like 20 extra spaces on a sheet, print some wine, print some poison.
Right.
So because of that, it was really easy to slip it in. And Jason from Button Shy asked, "Do you want it to be a wallet game?" And I said, "Obviously, yes. Why would I turn that down?" So it became a wallet game. It got its little wallet with my name on it, which is really neat.
Yep.
And because of that easy printing, it's like the one Button Shy game that's remained constantly in print. Usually things will be in print, then they'll go out, wait till there's enough demand, and print another run. But Vino Morte can always just fit into the side of any other print run. So they're always just making a couple, and every once in a while, you just got to sort them and throw them in the wallets, and there you go. So it's done really well because it plays a high player count, which was a good thing before the beginning of 2020, and it's really easy to teach.
Yes.
Like that's one of the things everyone brings up. It's like, oh, you don't even have to say the rules; you just show people. Here's your first turn. Okay, you're dead. We're moving on, and now we're playing the game.
Yes.
So it's done really well. I really enjoy playing it. It's one of my most played games, which I mean, like I said, I never play tested it, so none of that is learning. That's just, it's a fun game to play with a group of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was a really interesting experience, and it's done really well. Now it's one of their top selling games. So couldn't be happier with how it turned out. But I did not do a lot of work on that.
Fantastic. Well, let me ask you this question, which I guess it maybe will apply to other small games you've worked on. What is your process for designing a small form factor game? The process that you would give to people as advice, just budding design.
Well, I mean, it's obvious. It's just here, put the one. Let's just, here are some things.
I thought it was, but it's just one Chris at the table. Chris number 2. Let the man answer.
So it's so the main thing I try to do, and it's weird because this doesn't apply to Vino Morte really, but I try to fit more game in the small space. So right now I'm working on some Mint Tin games, which one is inspired by 18xx games. So I'm trying to get that full railroad stock market feel in a couple of cards and cubes.
Wow.
And then I'm also building a 4X Space Empire game in the same form.
Yes, please.
They're working well. The 4X one's actually going better than the train one. The train one is it's like so close to done. It's like 95%, but that last 5% is so tough.
Sorry, I'm the pun of the group. That's the only thing I bring to the table. Our pun.
Oh my gosh! You think I'd be used to this guy, but he still gets me every once in a while.
Well, and so Button Shy actually is starting their next design contest. And
yeah, I just saw an announcement.
Yeah. Actually, I think it was just today, maybe even as we record, which is May the 10th. But it's kind of they're going into want to do kind of an RPG at the table, which I thought was like I sat and kind of marinated on that for a little bit and go, wow, there's so many facets. Because my first thought is like, oh, we've got a full table presence like Swords and Sorcery or Gloomhaven or all that, but as I kind of combed through the press release, it was very much like, don't worry, like it. What are some aspects? And so, I guess what I'm asking, there's a question here. I promise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is like, how do you even with your train game or the space game that you just mentioned? Like, I would assume limited size makes you really laser focused on what you want to do. Correct?
Yeah, it's a lot about reusing components. So and this is something I tried for a lot of the other Button Shy games for that first contest that never went anywhere. But so the train game, each card right now is both an engine, cargo, a station, and a share of stock, depending on how you're holding the card. So things cycle through, and there's a whole system of when you deliver with an engine, then that will become a new station, and that increases places to deliver to and raises the value of your shares. So it's trying to work things like that. But even then, it gets really tough with only 36 cards and some cubes.
Yeah.
So it's using all the pieces to their maximum efficiency is the hardest part. But and so here's the thing with Vino Morte. I think the difference with that is instead of trying to fit a lot of game into the components, a lot of the game doesn't require the components. Mm-hmm. So with that, I mean, the components are essentially nothing. The game is played entirely above the table, so to speak, in everyone's mind.
Right.
So, and I'd say that's another way you can go is the components are so simple, but like the players so social deduction is really well for that. Like think of games like Coup or Love Letter. Those are both very minimal components, but all the game is, can I figure out what you're thinking and what you're doing to me and stuff?
Very cool.
Do you find that, do you prefer yourself detailed, like huge games like that have a lot of stuff, or do you in your own playing like the smaller footprint games, or is footprint not even a really consideration for you?
I love them all. Eclipse was the game that got me into designing in hobby games, so I enjoy a massive game, but I also love like really tiny card games. Like the Button Shy games are awesome. Just the other day I was playing Cockroach Poker, which was one of the inspirations for Vino Morte. So just, I like anything, but I like a game that's elegant. I don't want to have to go through a ton of complicated rules. In my own designs, I don't want to write a lot of complicated rules.
Yes.
So even with my big games, I try to keep it to like 2 pages of rules.
Yeah.
a little wider once you add the pictures and stuff. But
Right.
like what Jamie Stegmaier did with what was it? His 4X game that's not really a 4X game. Not Scythe, the other
The
one.
one that you don't like. The one that you-
Tapestry.
Tapestry, yeah.
Mhm.
So I haven't played it yet, but it really intrigued me because it's like 4 pages of rules for a Civ game.
Yeah.
And
It's-
I think that's the kind of thing I like.
It's not a Civ
Whether or not
game.
I like that game, I don't know.
It
But
actually is.
It-
It
I mean,
really
I
is.
guess technically it is a Civ game.
It's a Civ
Okay,
game.
right. Well,
It's a
fair
Civ
enough.
game.
But I
it's
actually just
marketed as a Civ
this
game.
is true.
It's a Civ game.
But actually, I was a little disenfranchised with Tapestry, but I did just play. And you talk about elegance, and that's something we talk about a lot here on the show. Is what you're doing is really simple. Why you're doing it is infinitely complex, or that's where the
Yep.
game is. But speaking of Tagmeyer, I did play, or not Tagmeyer, Stagmeyer. Tagmeyer is button shy. Stagmeyer is where am I looking for? Oh, he's there. Oh, well, Jamie Stegmaier, yeah, he's got his own company. It's there somewhere. It's people know.
Stonemeyer?
Stonemeyer Games. There it is.
I enjoy leaving him, Chris. I do. I just like to let him.
I played the Red Rising game, and his newest, which is a re-implementation of like Fantasy Realms or something, but still, what he was able to do as far as elegance is concerned, just with basically a deck of cards and a small board,
Yeah.
with just a few things, was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Super cool. Well, you've given us one answer to this question, but I want to ask if you've got some more, because you told us Eclipse. I wanted to ask, what are some of your biggest gaming inspirations to you personally? And we got Eclipse, which is a fantastic answer, but what else is there?
So, like I said, Cockroach Poker. That's one of those things. It's just so simple, and the entire game that comes out of just this simple. I'm going to pass you a card and say something, and I could be lying to you. And I really like to lie in games. Like, what is it? Sheriff of Nottingham.
Mhm.
That's an amazing one. Like,
It is.
I've never won that game, but I feel like I won
Oh,
when I
man.
can pass someone a bag and say, "I'll pay you $5 to open this."
Yeah.
And they just look at me so confused, like, I don't know if I should listen to you or not. Why are you paying me to open your own bag?
Yeah.
And they fall for it, and someone else takes a bunch of money. It's great.
Fantastic.
That one actually just saw a reprint.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think second edition.
Second hand's been out for a bit, actually.
Oh, is it really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We're going to move on to some general design questions.
Well, I've real quick. I
yeah,
mean,
go ahead.
so look, of course, you have your own BGG page because you're awesome, and only awesome people have BGG page. We don't have a BGG page. Like we have.
It's very easy to get one.
Yet we still don't have one.
Bubble burst, or is it?
It's true. You. So of course, in Vino Morte, I want to say Muerte, like but it's Morte. It's not Spanish. It's Italian. But it is Italian, correct?
Oh,
Well, it's Latin,
Well, it's a form of-
pre-Italian.
Yeah, it's pre-Italian. There it is. I teach at a classical school. I hope they're not listening. So, but I noticed a lot of your other games or things that you've got credit for. And a lot of them, I'm
Okay.
just kind of interested. Like, what else have you put out, or what else are you like in the process of, or have worked on? I mean, I would love to kind of know sort of your discography, if you will.
is ludology, you mean?
Well,
Ludography.
discography, is that
Just music, just
Mu-
records.
I don't release them on discs. So.
Right.
Oh.
Ludo is for games.
Oh, yeah, but I was using a term maybe other people.
So, Chris, you can go with that question.
It's actually ludography. That's what it's called.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's not a popular word because
It's
people
not.
don't talk about it.
It's something like you need a cream for or something. So, I'm sorry. Continue, please.
So,
I need to stop talking.
so if you look at my BGG page, it's a mixture of things that are actually published all through Button Shy. I haven't had anything published outside of them.
Okay.
And things that I sort of self-published / made a page for. And again, so BGG is a real weird place. So you can make an anything, call it a game, and submit a page for it, and it might get okayed, and it might not. And then once it's okayed, you can never get rid of it.
Right.
So you can't say, "Oh, I didn't actually mean to put that print and play up and call it a game." Well, it's a thing now. Someone might own it. So yeah, BGG is a weird place. But so some of those are basically dead-ended print and play projects.
Okay.
But the ones that actually got released, So I made a game called Tempest Imperium, which is kind of like a roll and write, except instead of rolling dice, it's based on the date and time that you start playing. So you'll write it in and get a 10-digit number, and then that controls what actions you get, and it also sets up the map for different obstacles and bonuses.
Kind of cool.
So that was a really fun thing. And then Jason talked to me about it from Button Shy, and like we talked, like, oh, like, can you do something with this? Ended up putting it up on his other site, P&P Arcade, just as a free print and play, just get it out there. But then he was also at that time for his board game of the month looking for monthly roll and write games. So they do like a series for the year. So he's like, oh, could we turn this into like a series for the year? I'm like, okay, yeah, we could work with something like that. I did not understand the project I was getting into when I agreed to that. So he's like, make 12 roll and write games based on this system. I was like, okay. And like, oh, we'll make it like a continuous campaign. We'll call it Tempest Quest, Tempest meaning time, and me putting Latin into all of my game names is kind of a thing.
There you go.
So it took a long time to figure out the structure. I was thinking more like medieval RPG style quest. Nothing was clicking together with the original mechanics, because the original one is just you're building up your city or empire, and you're just like building stuff and getting some points. Nothing, there's no campaign to it or anything. So it was a very complicated beginning. And then it all came together when he's like, no, we're going to make it sci-fi, and we're going to use the pocket universe that he already developed for some of his other games, so he already has existing characters. So then it turned around and like, okay, it's going to be sort of a Firefly kind of thing. We got this ragtag crew going through their misadventures in the galaxy. And then you throw in some Star Wars ripoffs because they're fighting against the Empire, and they're not the rebels, but they're kind of helping the rebels. So imagine if the entire crew of the Firefly was all Han Solos in this pocket universe.
I'm in.
That's basically
There.
Tempest Quest.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Nice. That sounds
So
fantastic.
it all runs off that system with no rolling dice. You just write in the date. It ended up being a 13-episode campaign. It was incredibly difficult to get all of that done. We fell behind on the schedule numerous times, but eventually it all got done. It all got released. And I am hoping to play through it myself all at once. That I did play test extensively, but never all together, because it was, we got to make this next episode. We got to make this next episode.
Yeah.
But
did you find that process was creatively exciting, or did it after a while, because of the rush of getting out each episode, you sort of was like, like those artists who, what is it, Jaleel White from Family Matters. I mean, like, I assume at some point, I'm sure he got tired of playing Urkel, so.
Funny, because I was just listening to your episode today about that.
Oh, wait, I've made one more Urkel reference than I have. Never mind.
Yeah, you bring him up every time.
Apparently, I bring up a lot of Urkel. Oh, wow. That's super awkward.
But also, side story about Urkel. I saw some video about what's her name from The Good Place and Veronica Mars.
Kristen Bell.
Kristen Bell, yeah. So it's some comedy skit where like secretly she has a ton of tattoos, including a tattoo of Steve Urkel on one shoulder and Stephen Urkel on the other shoulder.
Stefan Urkel.
Stefan, yeah.
Stefan Urkel.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Excuse me while I go watch that and you guys chat. So, all right. So yeah. Again, like, what was it? A struggle to not necessarily be as creative, or did you get tired of it? Don't worry, Jamie.
No. So
nobody from Button Shy listens to us, so it's okay. You can be honest.
I mean, they might now, but
that'd be awesome. Hey,
it would be awesome.
Yes, we talk about you guys a lot.
I mean, Jason's way too busy to listen to anything, I think. But it was interesting because the Tempest space, like just using the numbers to create the board, that's another space where I thought it would be limiting, but it turns out you can just do almost anything with it if you just twist things the right way. So there was a ton of space to work with. The trick was kind of figuring out things that were balanced, because it's all solo games. So it needs to have that, like, not too easy to complete, but also not too difficult and not too confusing. And it all has to fit on a single sheet of paper, and it can't be too big, and it can't be too many rules, because the rules also have to fit on a single piece of paper. So that was tricky. I think the balance was the hardest part.
Right.
And I don't know if everything is really balanced, but it's about the adventure. It's not about the perfect balance.
There you go. So I guess we can keep stepping through that. And the question we were going to get to is, what is a typical game design process for you? So regardless of whether it's a micro game or a small game or a big game, what's your process? How do you literally, when you first get the idea, just walk us through as much of that as you want to share with us?
So usually the beginning is listening to a podcast. Like I said, I guess I could listen to 9 hours of podcasts a day because I'm listening for 3 hours at triple speed. So I get through a lot of podcast content. But especially my earlier games. Now that I have so many designs, I'm kind of backlogged. So I try not to think of new games anymore and just work on the ones I have. But just hearing on a podcast, so people will be talking like, oh, you know what? There's no good pirate games. And then I'm thinking, oh man, a pirate game, that would be fun to make. So I'll just get tons of ideas like that.
Please make a
some
pirate
of them.
Game. Pirates are my favorite.
I mean, I really want to make a pirate game, but it's tough. Time travel's on my list too. I have a really good idea for a time travel game, but I have just not had time to work on it.
That's a really interesting paradox. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Okay, here's the name. Yesterday Trader.
Oh.
That does invoke a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. I instantly go to Anachrony, that's it. Have you played Anachrony?
I have not, but I hear it's good.
Yeah, it has a system in which you
are basically Yesterday Trader.
Yeah, it is. Well, so not necessarily, but I mean, so what happens is like you can send products back to the past in your current turn, and then you have like where it's sent from. You have up until then to actually pay for it. So,
yep.
Or you create paradoxes. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So okay, we got podcasts, and then for inspiration, where do you go from there?
So I get the idea, and then maybe I'll write it down. Maybe I'll forget about it. Those are the most painful ones. If I don't write it down in time, they're gone.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll come back. If something's interesting enough, I think of an idea, maybe write up a page of ideas on it. If that sticks and it seems to go somewhere, I'll write the rules. I write the rules way before I prototype or playtest anything. Mainly because of my schedule. It's much easier for me to type up than actually put something together and playtest it.
Yeah.
So I'll write up the rules, and if while I'm writing the rules, it stops making sense, obviously that's a problem. If I get to a point where I'm like, wow, this is way too many words, I'm not going to do that. So that'll kill an idea.
Okay.
If it survives and gets like a version of rules, then I'll make a prototype. I've had a lot of games die at that point where I make a prototype, I've designed up cards, even printed them, and then have absolutely no interest in testing it. It just becomes uninteresting again.
Right.
The ones that make it through that stage, then I playtest it with my groups. Right now, I'm in the Game Makers Guild of Boston, and I have another design group that isn't meeting now because of the pandemic, but Game Makers Guild is still meeting online and using Tabletop Simulator. So I'll test it with them. They're a great group of people that I've known for years now, so they'll give me very harsh criticism. They will tell me everything I've done wrong. They will help me improve it. I will fix it and bring it back and do it again and do it again and do it again. Get to a point where people really like it, keep changing it, and then they'll yell at me and say I should go back to that version. And I'm kind of famous for continually making drastic changes every single week of playtesting. And they'll always say, no, go back to the beginning. The beginning of this year was the best time. But it's you gotta get it right. So sometimes I'll keep twisting.
Yeah, well, and Larry points to me because I've dabbled just because actually Button Shy.
We both got into
we both got into that, and was it they did the Roll and Write one is the one I really kind of got into. But ultimately, you don't know if another idea is going to be what it's missing.
Yep.
You know, and you've got to go through all of those other iterations and then realize, okay, then I need to come back to, after you've played 7 different versions, you liked the first one the best. Okay, great. We just realized that there are 6 other versions that we know don't work.
You got to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with it. I that's the kind of way I operate as well.
Yeah, no, and it is, and it was refreshing. It's really cool to hear your take on it, Chris. But it was refreshing to work with Alex on that. For one, it's been refreshing to even do the podcast with him because, like I said, I went to school for broadcast. We were talking about earlier, so I've kind of always had my mind on these type of things, and I'd always before the podcast kind of thought about how would I play my part in someone else's thing? Because when I came up, if you were going into broadcast, that meant you were trying to get a job, obviously being a newscaster somewhere. So basically it had always been, how am I going to make sure that I can contribute? I hadn't really gone onto a collaborator level yet. So working with him on the podcast kind of blew my mind like, wow, this is really cool. But then when we had designed, I'd always kind of designed in a bubble too. And so when we did that for the button shy thing, seeing him do that so fast at first, my first instinct was just like, okay, this is going to drive me crazy. But literally, like that first time, something clicked on the game that we were playing that he was saying. And I'm like, no, wait, hold on. That was really good. And we never would have hit that. Maybe it'll be, and then he pivoted again. I'm still chewing on that because that's kind of the way I move. And he had pivoted and I'm like, okay, hold on. But he did it again. I'm like, well, wait, that's good too. Well, maybe there is something to say about the speed, I guess. It's not my way, but having somebody that does is fantastic because, it did help. I mean, him plowing through like that.
I did not win that contest.
Well, I didn't.
I never won one of their contests either. So.
Me either. There's three of us. Everybody at the table, we've all lost the contest.
Absolutely.
So if Jason is listening, thanks, Jason.
Yeah, they did not bring mine. The judge did not bring mine. But actually, when I saw the winners of that year,
it's
2019.
Wasn't that?
It's the one. It was the racing.
I think that's Tussie Mussy. I thought
it was the racing game. It was the roll and write racing game, and then it was there's one about trees. It was like a park game.
It was they were fantastic.
Yeah, they were really good.
I was blown away.
I was like, okay, you win.
I don't feel bad at all. That's
good job,
amazing.
Fellas. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, tell you what. Yeah, let's do this. Let's take a short break so we can hear from our sponsor, and then we'll come back and we'll get into some more stuff with Chris. Is that cool with everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. We'll be right back after these messages.
We want to thank the sponsors of today's episode, our friends at Van Ryder Games.
Creators of award-winning games such as the single-player Hostage Negotiator and the One vs. Many Detective City of Angels.
You can find their full catalog of games, including their graphic novel adventures, at vanrydergames.com. That's VANRYDERGAMES.com, your FLGS, or wherever you buy your games online.
All right, everybody, and welcome back into the big show. We're here with, this is the Spoken Token, and we're here with Mr. Chris Anderson.
Like it's like, I'm listening on 3 times speed. Did I go into a new podcast? Is that what?
So, Chris, let's get into, like we said, I know we've been talking to you about some designs, and obviously we talked about the game of yours that Alex and I just absolutely adore, but I am extremely excited. I want to get into the boardgameworkshop.com, man. You want to tell us anything you want to tell us about that, and let's dig into that, because that is infinitely interesting to me.
So it's a podcast. It's about board game design. So I had the idea a couple of years ago. Like I said, I listened to a ton of podcasts. It's been let's say a hobby for a while. And I had the idea to make my own thing. I was originally going to do it as a YouTube show. Like I said earlier, my background's in video, so I have access to the equipment. I don't own really any of it, but if your job has the equipment, you don't need to own it, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
And YouTube is great, but video is a lot of work. So I ended up saying, you know what? I'll just make a podcast. That's so much easier to edit. It's still a lot of work to edit.
Yes.
It is nowhere near editing video.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And for Larry and I, we have a face for podcasting. So that's really what keeps us on the airwaves and not in the video waves.
Though he's not wrong. What really keeps us on the podcasting is that video is in Alex's hands.
This is true. And apparently my design process, I've already pivoted. So I'm now, we're now not going to video. We're going to hieroglyphs.
Oh my goodness.
So that's.
Oh my goodness.
That seems even easier to edit.
Absolutely. All I need is a chisel.
All right.
But so I decided to start a podcast and got some interviews. So I started recording in 2015 in December and then went live in 2016. Had a nice, easy once-a-month schedule. I'm not going to push myself too hard. Do like 15, 20-minute episodes. It was going well. And then I had a vacation from work. I was like, I'll record a bunch of episodes. Then I had a bunch of episodes in the can. I'm like, well, I can't sit on these forever. Some of them are time sensitive. So I started releasing weekly. Ooh. And then all of a sudden I had to record a bunch more episodes because I was releasing weekly and I was out of episodes again. So I switched to bi-weekly, tried to balance out with that. And it was going well for a while. As you know, bi-weekly is still it's a decent schedule. You need to keep coming up with ideas, getting guests and all that. And I was mainly doing interviews at the beginning, so I needed to come up with a new guest every time.
Wow.
I've pivoted a couple times through the years, trying to make my schedule easier. I have a habit of feeling overworked, deciding I should make it easier for myself, so I create more work. And it never gets easier. But so one of the things I decided early on to help, instead of me having to come up with all this content, I would get contributors. So other people could record their stuff and they could give it to me. It turns out recording with one guest is much easier than trying to wrangle 4 or 5 contributors for every episode.
Oh, yeah.
So that was even more work, getting people to send their stuff in. I still think it was a lot of great stuff and had a lot of great contributors that did. Some of them did recurring segments. Some people just threw in one thing. So I got a lot of different voices on, which was great. And I didn't have to talk as much, so that was nicer. But it was more editing and a lot more checking with so many people to get stuff in on time. So eventually I stopped that and switched over to a roundtable discussion instead. So instead of doing one-on-one interviews, I'd invite a couple people on and we just have a topic and talk around about that. So again, less work on my end. With the interviews, I was doing, some research in the beginning, like who is this person? What have they done? Like you guys do, planning ahead.
Wait!
That's
Don't give
a lot
us
of
too
work.
much credit here. Stop.
You looked at my BGG page. That's more than I do before my podcast.
I did more than that, but yeah.
Yeah, actually, Larry, I will give Larry some credit.
One of us does research.
Yes. Well, again,
Anyway, I wanted to avoid doing research, so I went to the roundtables. That were interesting. Again, it was a lot of good content. The editing became much harder though, because now I'm editing together like 4 or 5 people. And then one episode, I did not have any content. I didn't have a guest. I didn't have an idea. And I just recently, I'd been judging game contests. So I'd judged the button shy contest. I'd been a judge for the cardboard Edison contest. So I decided I could make a contest. I know how these things work in the background. So again, I have too much work to do. So I decided to come up with a game design contest, wrote the rules for it in a week, said it out loud on Twitter.
Ooh.
So I got committed to it.
That's a thing.
And then my next episode was launching the design contest. And so that was August, and then submissions were in September. I actually went into the hospital to get my gallbladder removed during the final days of the submissions.
Ooh.
That was a fun
because again, you
event.
need more work.
Yeah, so but it went amazingly well. I was expecting a small turnout for that first year. We got 87 submissions.
Wow.
And I ended up
Fantastic.
getting, I don't have the numbers here, but I think 70 something judges for it. So we put out a lot of feedback, and that became my main goal, getting a lot of feedback for the designers. So they get feedback in every round of the contest. And that's just gotten more and more. So that was, I don't even remember what year. 2018 was the first year of the contest. So this year now is our 4th. And it's gotten bigger and bigger every year with, actually the submissions have not grown that much. We're hovered around 100 each year, but we've gotten more judges each year and more feedback each year.
Awesome.
So we're closing in. If this year goes as well as last year, we will hit 1 million words of feedback over the 4 years.
That's
wow.
amazing.
That's
amazing.
incredible.
And I think it's
Yeah,
really
they-
important.
They
with
do a
the
ton of
feedback.
stuff.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Getting the feedback on those content.
So, I mean, what would we have heard of any of the things that came out of these contests?
So the winner for, not this past year, but the year before was now I'm blanking on the name. Put me on the spot. Curators. So that was self-published by a company from Sweden. They put that out. It won the contest, and they released that on Kickstarter, and I think it's shipping soon.
Okay.
Yeah, because the Kickstarter was last year-ish. It's hard to tell in COVID times. you know.
Yeah. We're all just like,
Right.
I think it's right now. We're in May here in Tennessee, and it feels like October. I'm like, we pumpkining. What are we doing here? So,
But actually, from the first year, Book of Villainy was one of the finalists. It didn't end up winning, but it's by Fortessa Elise, who is now working with Funko, and her game Book of Villainy is, I think it was just coming to Kickstarter. It's coming to Kickstarter soon, or
Okay.
again, it's hard to keep track of all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
Well, and
but yeah,
Kickstarter
a bunch
too,
of them
yeah.
have been released.
So, well, all right, and what is your? I mean, I know we have to talk about it. I mean, do you have any particular feelings on Kickstarter? I know you mentioned. Did you actually try and put anything of yours to Kickstarter, or do you try and go the publishing route? What do you prefer as a designer?
So I started my own company recently. My goal is to eventually go to Kickstarter. Vino Morte was on Kickstarter. I was in the background of that, but didn't actually run it because obviously I am not button shy. So that was nice having someone else do it. I've never pitched a game to anyone. So
okay.
All of my games that got published were, like I said, first Vino Morte through the contest, and then just conversations with Jason because he needed a game. My other game with them was one of the postcard games because they needed another postcard game to fill up the month.
Right.
So I'm always there to fill in a gap, but I have never actually gotten around to pitching a game to anyone.
Interesting.
I would like to. It seems like a nice thing to do and have someone else take over all the work.
So let me ask you this then. What if you could? Someone says, you know what, Vino Morte is the best thing I've ever played ever. Here's $1 billion. Take the time that you need. What game are you building? Like, what are you creating a huge game? Are you creating a micro game? Where's it set? You know, what do you have what is your dream game? The one that when you're napping and drool's coming down the side of your mouth, and you just wake up, I was dreaming about that game again. What's that one?
So the current name for that is UltraCorp. Its playtest name previously was Plutocracy. I am on the 25th iteration of it.
Wow.
I've been working on it for probably 3 years now, with the last year being kind of a year off to work on other things.
Sure.
This is something and this is another thing my playtest group is making fun of me for, always bringing a version of Plutocracy. It's at its heart a stock market game, but it's not really a stock market game. It's about, have you ever played Imperial? Have you ever heard of Imperial?
That's what it's EMPYR.
I have
No,
not.
I am the way you spell Imperial.
Oh, okay.
No,
never mind.
Anyway, so Imperial is a game I've never played, but I heard about it on a podcast.
The way you spell Imperial.
I can't actually spell it, so that's just what I went with.
That's why you went with the IM. That's it.
But so that's a game set pre-World War I Europe, where all the players are basically financiers in the background. I think, again, I've never played this. This is based on other people describing the game on podcasts. But basically, you're buying stock in different countries, or proto-countries at that time, because they hadn't actually formed into countries. And you're working all sides of pre-World War I Europe, just trying to make the most money. So, pretty terrible people in the grand scheme of history. But you're trying to get the most value for yourself by building up all of the countries, because as they go to war, you make the money off selling them the tanks and the planes. So it's inspired by that. But this is, in the most recent version, it's cyberpunk. So you're shady background people trying to manipulate these corporations before they merge from megacorps into the UltraCorp. And there's only one corporation left in the world. And you want to have the most shares in that, or the most power, or however it works out. So this is now a massive game where you're trying to run the multiple corporations sort of independently. So they're kind of run by an AI system where you're a player influencing it, but not actually controlling anything, but also trying to get money in each of the different corporations as they merge and take over each other. Then there's also area control on the map because you're trying to control more resources, although you aren't, the corporations are. And then there's an additional board with a Senate, because the Senate makes the rules for how the corporations can function. And you're trying to manipulate the Senate too. And it's massively complicated. And I've been thinking about it for years. So yes, that is what I dream about. And that is what I would spend my $1 billion on. Finally finishing that.
There we go. All right. I want to ask you some more questions about the Board Game Workshop too. Let's get some of these in here. So let's say this. What's your final hope that for the impact that the Board Game Workshop will have on board game culture and board game design in general? What's your thought behind that?
So my main thing is I want it to build a community. We've got a Discord now that is very active during the contest and then kind of falls asleep in the off season.
Okay.
But during the contest, everyone, the judges and designers are all there. They're sharing their work. They're helping each other with their submissions. In round 2 of the contest, we pair the games up with coaches. So it's kind of like a short mentorship program where they're working on just that game. They're trying to build more connections. And then
fantastic.
just the fact of getting the contest out there, it's all very public. So now, like, anyone can come and be a judge. That's one of the things. I'm very open to anyone, except if you're a bad person. We don't want bad people involved in the contest. But everyone else, if you love board games and you want to give some helpful criticism, you are welcome to be a judge. We accept judges all around the world, all ages. We have a couple kids that are judges. Everyone's feedback matters, and I love having it and building that community and getting people to talk about their games and just share all that. So I think it's just about giving that feedback and becoming a bigger global design community.
Fantastic. So what are some of the key differences that you see in game design as it pertains to regionally? So based the US and other regions or Europe, what are some of the main things that you're seeing that are differences that stick out to you?
So I know Southeast Asia, they tend to focus more on small games. I think part of that is the expensiveness of storage, just the size of houses in that area of the world. So you're looking for smaller things. In America, as a lot of people have complained about, you can fit a small game in a very big box because you need that shelf space. So it's a very different style of how you market things. In Europe, I mean, things are merging so much more now that like everything is connected online. So you have a lot of global influence now, whereas before you were much more limited to your regional designs. So it's merging more than anything now. But I mean, Europe, going back to the classic Euros, they tend to lean away from the direct conflict, and America leans into that. But again, it's all merging now. It's hard to really define anything, but I'd say we're getting more games from smaller areas now. So before you'd have, things from the US, things from Germany, things from the UK, things from Japan. But now smaller countries are getting more connected because, again, the internet is connecting us all. It's much easier to pitch a game to publishers around the world, to publish, especially short run stuff with print on demand.
Yeah.
So you can get a game out there incredibly easy now if your goal is not to make a profit. If your goal is to make a profit, it's a tricky process still. But I mean, any person could spend 2 months working on graphic design and get a game published if they wanted to.
Very, very cool. So I want to ask one more, I guess, jumping back into some general design stuff that I realized that we skipped. And I guess this was one we kind of ask all of the designers that we work with. So what are some of the tips that you have for budding game designers to get off on the right foot towards success? And I guess that comes in what you just said. It depends on what you're trying to do, but what are some of your go-to tips if a young designer comes to you and says, hey, how do I do this? How do I be successful at this?
Talk to people. That's kind of why I started my podcast. I'm a shy person, which people might not know that if they see me talking at a convention or hosting a podcast. But I am very nervous talking to people, especially people I don't know for the first time, and especially for no reason. Having the podcast gave me that reason to talk to people. So I can say, hey, want to be on my podcast? All of a sudden, there's a reason to talk to someone. So just get out there and talk to people, join design communities. Cardboard Edison has a list of pretty much all the design communities that exist. So globally, and now there's a lot online since the pandemic. A lot have moved to online, and I think a lot of that will stay around even once things shift back to in person. But just having that group of people to talk to is a great thing. You can take your terrible idea, you can show it to people. They will hopefully let you know it's terrible, but they'll also let you know how to fix it. And that's the first step. If you sit in your bedroom with a terrible idea and don't show anyone, it just stays a terrible idea. If you show it to someone, it could get better, or it could go away and you could get a new idea, or you could just make a friend and forget about the game. All sorts of great things happen from meeting other people.
I like those.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, because this is something that we've been exposed to a little bit. We've seen some designs kind of in their infancy, or maybe even like as they're growing in maturity. And as a designer, how do you receive feedback? Or I guess even what I'm really trying to get at, what is the appropriate way to give feedback to someone? Like, so for instance, I'm playing a game and, maybe I don't necessarily like this style of game. And so I insert like, well, what if you added a combat mechanic or something? And, part of me goes in my brain's like, well, that's maybe that's not what they're trying to do. So what's a polite way to offer feedback and or criticism to a designer as someone who's just play tested their game, or if they've asked for it, or?
So let's start with communication is a two-way street. So you have your playtester and you have your designer. The playtester is freely offering their time and effort. So I think you have to put a lot of the onus on the designer. So even if you get a playtester that is, I mean, to a certain degree, like, don't deal with terrible people. But if they are not the smoothest at giving their feedback, as the designer, you have to be tough and know how to deal with certain things. But to answer your question directly, be nice. Don't ever attack the person. Even if their game is a terrible, terrible thing, they're not necessarily a terrible person. Again, there are exceptions. Maybe their game is like a literally terrible thing and they are a terrible person, and that's a bad situation. And these things do have to be dealt with.
And they should
but
say it
in general,
so.
The game design community is very friendly people. And most designers, newer ones, it's tough, especially that first time. You are literally showing someone your baby that you crafted from your soul, and they're looking at it and like, wow, that is an ugly baby. And that hurts. That hurts that first time.
It really does.
Actually,
When
it
you're on,
didn't
you're
for
like-
me. My own children, they were not cute.
I don't believe that. He's not telling the truth. They're adorable now. So yeah, they were.
Now, it's because you see them when they don't talk. So, but all right, never mind. Sorry, we're getting off track. I am so sorry.
Squirrel!
I love my babies, all three of you.
But by the time you're on your 15th child and someone tells you it's ugly, yeah, I know. We're
He's
going to
like,
work on it. We're going to make it better.
I know. That's why we named him Brick. So,
Wow.
So that's part of the reason, like, just get your stuff out there right away so you can get that over with and move on. But as a playtester, I said no personal attacks, and try to give context for your interpretation. So, like I said, if you don't like that kind of game, like if I don't like area control games and I'm sitting down to an area control game, my feedback can still be useful, but I should mention, I don't like area control games, but this is how I feel.
I like that. Okay, that's good.
The other thing to be careful about, especially for designers who are playtesting, is don't try to design their game for them.
yeah.
You are there to give them feedback and
Guilty
point
of
out
that.
problems, not give them solutions.
Oh.
If they ask for solutions, like you want to brainstorm some stuff, that's fine. But don't sit there trying to turn their worker placement game into your trick-taking game, because they're not building your trick-taking game. That's you. You can go do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's really good. Super cool. Mr. Alex,
Is it game time?
I think it's game time.
It's
sir.
game time. All right, game time.
It's game time. So those of us who listen to us, which includes Chris,
Hey,
knows
yeah.
whenever we have a guest, we always play a game with them. We do a list of games around here, man. We don't play around with the chaff, man. We go
It's
straight.
a
for the
3-time
fruit.
speed game. 3-time speed.
Yeah, we go straight to the fruit. So we don't deal with top 7 lists or top 5 lists or top 10 lists. We only deal with the top 3, because that list is not just good, it's super good.
See, listening to us 3-time speed, you'd never hear that. That's the nuance. We're all about nuance, baby.
So Mr. Alex came up with the contest this time, and we're all going to play, and we're going to give our top 3 games of a certain genre. Mr. Alex, what was the genre?
Well, again, in honor of Vino Morte, we are going to, again, we're putting you on the spot, Chris. You're going to have to give us your top 3 favorite social deduction games.
Ooh.
So I knew this was coming, and I was trying to guess what you would pick for the topic.
Wait.
He listens to us.
Oh,
Of course he did. We're going to start
exciting.
with
I thought you'd go with card games, though, so I'm not prepared. That's great.
Oh, all right.
Perfect.
Yeah, great. That means we're going to get your true, honest
our
opinion.
plan worked brilliantly.
Nothing we do is brilliant.
I was trying to, man.
No,
I was
okay.
trying.
All right, so
I'll start.
Larry
We'll
will
go to
start.
you.
Yep.
And then Chris will be the
Absolutely.
and there's social. Mine are really social deduction.
So Larry likes to take what we say and then go his own way.
No. I
I'm all for that.
I honestly went with deduction because most of them, they have the social in them. So I stayed away from probably some of the more obvious quote unquote social deduction games. But these, I think you'll agree, these are social as well because there's a bit of social to it. So these are in order. I think I'm going to say them in order. Number 1 for me is Mysterium.
Okay.
I'm going with Mysterium.
I mean, you're right. It is deduction.
Yeah.
It is deduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's got that social component. Of course, this one's published by Libellud. This was designed by Oleksandr Nevskiy and Oleg Sidorenko. And we've played this one. We love the art.
Yeah.
I love the premise.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the ghost player there, and that's the social thing. I mean, it's like you can't, unless you've got that cool mask on, you know, you got to try to keep a straight face because you don't want to let people see what you're thinking. And you're thinking, no, knucklehead, look at the red thing I gave you. Look at the red thing I gave you.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't
Even
have that
without
face.
the ghost, you're working with the other players because that's
Yes.
all like totally co-op.
Right. You want them to, but you're trying to lead them, of course, to get the right clue as to who killed me. And I like that part about that one. So again, for me, number 3, Mysterium.
Mine aren't in any particular order. So I'm going to have to go classic, super easy, but I'm going to go Resistance in all of its many forms and fashions. I have had more fun with more types of people that just playing that game.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, it's so simple, but it's what I love is when people sit and they start to game out the game verbally, and they're like, well, you did this, and then you voted that, and then you did this, and I'm sitting back going, no, okay, I just lied because it was fun, but they're like, I just people piecing it together. And one of my favorite memories is we were playing with some friends several years ago, and my wife, it was between, I had kind of narrowed it down between my wife and our friend, and my friend was just like, I will give you the keys to my car because I am not the traitor. I'm not trying to do this. And I'm like, and my wife was like, sweetheart, it's not me, it's him. And I'm like, what the hell? You so pretty. And so I picked her, and then as soon as I did, I voted the way she asked me to vote. She flips over her car and she goes, sucker! And I mean, I'm just like, I don't know you. Our whole marriage is a lie.
Love it.
So I mean, again, not necessarily number 3, but it's just, it's
on your list.
Yeah, it's on my list.
All right, Mr. Chris, sir.
So I'm also going to say the Resistance. It might be my number 1, but I won't do it in order. But
Okay.
I've only played the Resistance twice, and they're both back to back. I won both games, once as whatever the bad side is, and once as the good side. They were both completely different experiences, though.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, we won like 3 in a row or 4 in a row, whatever you have to do. It was like just a straight, like total one-sided victory. The other game went all the way to the end. It was the very last, like we already had like all the tiebreakers, and we won on like the last final tiebreaker,
Wow.
round 7. But the first one had this great moment with this guy was a friend of mine. I haven't actually seen him in a couple of years, so I hope he's doing well. But we met at a con. So these are people I didn't know. Like this is strangers at a con.
Which is even better.
It is. So we're both on the spy team, and we both get picked on a mission, and we look at each other across the table, and one of us throws the mission and the other votes yes. So there's only one bad vote in that with 2 evil people.
Oh.
For the rest of that game, they were absolutely convinced that we couldn't both be evil.
Oh.
And we were, and we destroyed the game.
Oh, I love it.
Perfect.
I
Yes.
love it.
Perfect.
But yeah, those situations are so great in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's classic social deduction.
And actually, the game is above the table.
Exactly.
And especially like for you, when that miraculous, like when you're just in sync, you're like, okay, cool. And you're like,
Yep.
It's like the A team. Like, I love it when a plan comes together. So, all right, Larry, what's your next one?
My next one, these next 2 were tough. And again, these are deduction games. I think because I wanted to put these in order is why it was difficult, because you're right, normally we don't. But you know what? I'm going to skip. I'm going to do number 1 right now. Number 1 for me is Detective City of Angels by our friends over at Van Ryder Games. Because of that one, it's got the social piece in it.
I guess and I can see that because your social deduction, because the chisel is lying to you.
Yes, you have to figure out where the chisel, and then as the other detective with the other players on your side, you've got to figure out whether or not you need to try to hear and hone in on what he's doing.
Yeah.
So it's like, did he get something? Is he maybe onto something? Do I need to follow their investigation too?
Chris, are you familiar with Detective City of Angels?
I've heard of it. It's a game that I really think I would love, but it's a game I could absolutely never get played.
Yeah.
So me and my wife played through the PlayStation game LA Noire years ago when it came out.
That game.
There you go.
And it was so great for so many reasons. And I feel like Detective City of Angels is like that exact same thing in a board game, except we're never going to have enough people to play it.
And Chris, you and I are the same person. Like, and that's because that's what Detective does for me.
I think y'all are in 2 different places.
Well, it's fine, but we're tomorrow trading, or yesterday trading,
Oh,
today trading, something trading in the past, future,
Hey!
present. It's time. It's complicated, but again, Detective. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to have at least three. and one person is the dedicated game master. But it hits every one of those LA Noire vibes. Like, I mean, you're looking at faces.
It sounds good. Maybe at a con someday I'll get a chance. But
yeah, it's great.
Well, you know what? We need to make sure we hook up somewhere, and we'll bring our copy.
Oh,
and we'll play with you. We need to meet as soon as we can get this stuff listed.
I've always wanted to go to Massachusetts.
It's beautiful.
It's a great place.
I think I've gone. I don't even know how far I've gone.
It's beautiful.
I mean, it's stupid expensive no matter what you do.
Oh, we're just coming to visit, man. We ain't coming to stay. So
it's probably
that's
still
cool.
expensive then too.
I mean, even if you want to get lunch, it's stupid expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, well then we'll be leaning on.
We're bringing the game. You're the one.
Come on, man. We bringing
Actually,
entertainment,
no,
man.
he's not buying.
I'll bring the
anything.
lunch. You bring the game.
He's on a teacher's salary, so I know that. All right, so
What you got for us, sir?
my next one again is pretty obvious, but it has to be this because of my own personal experience, and that's Battlestar Galactica. Have you ever played Battlestar, Chris?
So I have not played it. I had a copy. I bought it real cheap at Barnes & Noble on a discount. It was $20.
And then you sold it for like 3,000, right? Yeah.
Then I gave it away sealed as a podcast giveaway. And then it went out of print.
Yeah, your
whoever got
podcast is
that
great.
is a lucky person.
Yeah, your podcast is great.
It's like you just gave somebody, here, I don't need this lotto ticket. Fantasy Flight is in the process of reprinting it. They are retheming it as, of course, if you had to pick one thing that's not Star Wars or Marvel that Fantasy Flight would reprint something as, it would be
Cthulhu, which you mentioned on your last episode, which I listened to.
Ha ha.
This guy and his research. But you're right, it's Cthulhu. All right, but yeah, so Battlestar Galactica, because the game is so involved, you forget that there's still a traitor, but you never forget there's still a traitor. Like, you're so intent on, I have to make sure that we don't lose the game, and then the dread of that, like, there is somebody out there that's totally trying to screw us over. So
it sounds great. It's definitely something, again, just like Detective City Angel, it's something I really want to try, but it takes that group that is hard to get together.
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Harder now that I don't have the game.
Yeah, that's true. That
I know, right?
makes it very difficult.
I know, right?
So, though I will say, we actually know a guy who created, so it's called Dark Moon. So Evan Derrick.
Yep.
So are you familiar with Dark Moon?
Again, I've heard of it. And
Okay.
haven't had a
Well,
chance to play it.
it's easier.
But
Detective is
Battlestar
his too. He created
Galactica Light, right?
Right. Yes, and it's basically it's Battlestar with dice. It's easier to play, and I actually think I might even be able to play it. Well, no, you couldn't zoom it because you'd need to roll the dice. So, all right. Well,
Just
cool.
I'll need a copy of it.
That's true. Well, it's easier to find. I think it's there's still some out there, and they're not stupid expensive. So, all right,
an improvement.
this is true. All right, so your next one, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna take a page from Larry and just ignore the social deduction category and go with Sheriff of Nottingham.
I don't know if I'm happy about that.
At least someone else agrees with me. I do
So
like that.
it's got deduction.
Absolutely. Well,
It's very social.
you're deducing from what the players are doing.
No, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's not the
It's
not the
like I
core
said
tenet,
earlier, I
but
just
it's
love to
huge.
lie to people.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
See? That's a good choice too. We love the sheriff. We love Sheriff of Nottingham. So my number one was Detective, which I did last time, which of course was by Evan Derrick and published by Van Ryder Games. My probably number three, Mysterium would be number two, would be Coup.
Yeah.
And this one is by
I love Coup.
yeah, I do too. By Rikki Tahta. I probably pronounced that incorrectly. Forgive me. And of course, this one was published by Indie Boards and Cards.
And it's based in the Resistance universe.
It is based in the Resistance universe, and I got into this one, and I sat around with my siblings. If you've listened long enough, I don't know if we've talked about it. Since the time he listens, I'm one of five. I've got a brother and three sisters, and they aren't
That's
as into game.
4.
I'm one of five because I'm in there too. I have.
Oh yeah, a brother.
Yeah, I
and
know my
sisters.
family, man.
That's the stuff. I'm the one that can't count.
It's okay. It's hilarious. So, but they're not as into games as I am. So I have to be careful with what I can get them all to sit for. The younger brother and sister will pretty much play anything. My older two sisters are like, dude, okay, you're getting a little bit too much. Let's keep it. So, but I want to sit down and play with all of them because that's kind of where my roots come from. But this is one, the first time we played it, I sat it in front of them. I was waiting on a copy of Resistance, believe it or not, and couldn't get it yet. And I didn't have Resistance. So I picked this up first and we loved it. And they loved it. And we had a blast with it. And actually some of my brother's kids, some of my nieces and nephews were there. So we had I think it was 7 or 8 of us. There were a lot of people playing it. It's fun. It is a fun game. And that one is almost purely social because, I mean, yeah, you've got the card and you've got the rolls. But like you said, you can
lie.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want to say on that
right.
one. In fact, you have to if you want to win. So that one definitely makes the list for me. Again, that's Coup. Published by Indie Boards and Cards, designed by Rikki Tahta. Mr. Alex.
So I'm gonna go with what I chose, and then I'm gonna pull a Larry. Since you guys are all doing it together, and I'm gonna do one that's social. But so the one I picked as social deduction is Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. This is one I haven't gotten to play a lot, but the handful of times I did play, absolute blast. There's a level of, I mean, of course, you are deducing what the actual crime, the motive, and
Right.
the weapon, and all of this kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of clue, but the murderer is still there, you know, and they're lying and trying to throw people off and different stuff. And it's just got some really neat elements. It doesn't do anything new, but it takes great pieces from a lot of different things and puts it into a really, really great package that's better than the sum of its parts. So that would be the one that I actually picked for the real list. But now that you guys are talking about games that just have a social piece with
all of my stuff fits
with some deduction,
all of mine fit.
It's social
and deduction.
Yes, social and deduction, not social deduction. I have to say Treasure Island. So
that fits.
Yeah, well, okay. But
as a pirate, you have to lie or they're going to find your stuff.
That's right. It's social and there's deduction. So, and just again being able to draw on the board. And what I loved is that moment in. Do you know anything about Treasure Island, Chris?
I know a bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. Okay.
I've never played it, but yeah.
Well, of course, as Long John Silver's, you have to lie and kind of throw them off their clue. But what's even cooler is when I discovered as a player, I could lie to the other players. And that was the moment where I was like, I turned into a sailor into a pirate. Like I lied to somebody, and then I just instinctively sort of leaned back and opened my shirt a little bit and let my chest hairs come out. And, it's just like, that's right. I'm a pirate now.
Wow.
So it was a manly experience for me.
Okay, we're moving on. Chris, your last one.
So I was going to say Coup. But since you already talked about that, Coup's great. I love, again, like it's a simple, tiny game.
Mm-hmm.
And you get those situations where, and I think this is like the key part of Coup, is there's certain situations where it doesn't matter if they're lying. Like you get locked in a corner and you have to trust them or you have to call them out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Like, you know they're lying, but you're stuck. Because if they're telling the truth, you're ruined. So
Yeah.
you have to call them on the lie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great
it's
game.
Such
But
an ingenious game. With such
it really is. It really is.
Like, because the game itself has nothing to do with its components, and I love that. I love that.
I am a huge fan of not using the components in the game. But so the one I'll talk about instead is one I actually haven't gotten a chance to play yet. But it's from Oink Games. A fake artist goes to New York.
Oh, I saw this.
So it works similar to like Spyfall. There's one person that doesn't know what's going on, but you're all drawing a picture. So each person on their turn, they have to draw one line to this picture. So everyone is drawing a mouse. But similar to the Spyfall system, you don't want to draw such an obvious part of a mouse that the person who doesn't know, the fake artist, knows it's a mouse. Because if they figure it out, they win.
That's awesome.
But you also need to be obvious enough that it's a mouse to the other mouse artists so that they know you're not the fake artist, you're the real artist. You know it's a mouse. And just... I really enjoy drawing games. Like Pictionary is one of my favorite games from childhood. But it seems like such a great system, and I can't wait to try it. And someday I will own it, and I will do that, and there'll be people to play with.
There will be people to play with.
There you go. No, that's pretty cool. That's one for the list, and I'll have to make sure I look that one up. That sounds very interesting, even though I can't even draw stick people. So,
Well, that's the thing. If you draw it too good, they'll know.
Well,
true.
Ain't no danger
You need
me
to
drawing
not
it too good. No danger of me drawing it too good. Well, Chris, let's give you some space. I want to give you some space to let everybody know who's listening how they can get in touch with you and everything that you are involved with, sir. Take as much time as you need and give us as much info as you like on how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, so the main thing, like I said, the Board Game Workshop. So if you go to theboardgameworkshop.com, there's contact info there for email and Twitter, and I mean, that's about it. I don't really go on anything else. I technically have an Instagram account, but I've never posted anything. But the main thing now is the contest. So this is coming out the 15th, right?
Yes, sir.
So on May 16th, if I have gotten everything together, we will open up submissions for this year's design contest. And there's some new stuff this year. The main thing is that round 3 has been replaced. So instead of sending in a copy of your game for us to play test it, you are going to be entered into a speed pitching event and get to pitch your game to a bunch of publishers. So that is pretty awesome for the finalists.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
And also, like I said earlier, every single person gets feedback. So that's a massive event and something I'm very proud of now that it's come this far and gotten a lot of people, a lot of great feedback. But we need judges. So anyone who has any interest in board games at all, you are qualified to be a judge. Your opinion matters, and
Fantastic.
I desperately need your help. Go to theboardgameworkshop.com, go to the design contest tab, and there's a section about becoming a judge. And I hope both of you will join us as judges, or maybe designers if you're interested, or both.
Can I be a judge to my own design?
No.
Oh, okay.
The one way, there was only one way to break that, and this guy finds it.
Maybe I should be a judge. But real quick, what are the specifications for the actual contest itself? Like
So it has to be an unpublished analog game. So board game, card game, dexterity game. I don't specifically say no RPGs, but there's a very blurry line between dungeon crawlers and straight RPGs. So it might work, but mainly board games, what people commonly think of as board games.
Right.
So it just has to be unfinished. So there's no size restrictions or genre restrictions. There's no age limit on who can enter. Anyone from around the world can enter. Like I said, a couple of years ago, our winner was from Sweden. We had a bunch of entries from the UK, all over. So it's a truly global contest with global judges, and we get tons of feedback to everyone. So
what is the main way games are actually viewed and or like how does someone get a copy of the game to submit feedback?
So it's all done by video. So round one, everyone has to make a 2-minute video and a sell sheet. So that gets put up on the website, and all the judges get to look at those. The 2-minute video is an incredibly tough thing to put in, but in the end, people tend to appreciate being forced to make those cuts and come up with that 2-minute pitch.
Yep.
Because it really strengthens your thing, but it is tough. I keep trying to make short videos myself. I'm a professional video maker, and getting to 2 minutes is really, really hard. So I understand that, but it's worth it.
I can absolutely attest to that. When we did the video here for the button shot thing, it was difficult.
Yeah, but you're worried.
And it's
well, I mean, it wasn't so much of that. It's basically what he said. It's like you've got to cut it and still make it to where it is going to be appealing. You want to do the game justice.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. And we have the luxury of Carl. If I didn't have Carl, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
That's true.
So,
But the main thing is getting it down to 2 minutes means that more judges can see it. And that's how we get the tons of feedback. So last year, I think in round one, we had 15 judges on each game. So just for your round one 2-minute video, you got 15 judges worth of feedback.
that's amazing.
And then in round two, there's less games and same amount of judges. So we tend to get more. It goes more in depth. Once you get to the finals, you get a ton of stuff. Although this year there's no feedback in the finals because you get a pitch contest instead. But yes, so that's my main thing. I'm stuck in that contest, and it's all starting soon. Submissions are due June 13th.
Oh wow.
I was going to ask you.
That's a quick turnaround.
June 13th.
So this is a lot for people who probably already have one in the hopper.
Maybe if you can throw something together in a month. I mean,
You've got a month. Yeah, you've got a month from now.
I have this really cool idea of a game where I'm giving people like spoiled milk or real glasses of milk, and you just don't know.
Yeah, we're
It
going
could
to
work.
catch you right there.
It could
might be a
work.
surprise hit.
It might. I'm not going to test it though. I'm just going to send it out.
That's hilarious. Well, all right, Chris and they can get to you from the board game workshop. They can get to you personally, or they can get to the contest. If you're listening to us, guys, please go out and, like you said, he needs judges. Alex and I will work that piece out. If you've got a game design, by all means, go out and enter the contest, get the feedback. The feedback is extremely, extremely valuable. It is tremendously valuable. Just getting over the hump of, like you said, I love the way you put it a little while ago. If you sit there with it in your bedroom, it just stays a bad idea in your bedroom. If nothing else, getting a design out of the bedroom and getting it in front of other people, and whether you take the feedback or not, that is tremendous.
Didn't you write a whole Christmas story about that very same thing?
I don't even know who you are today, man. Carl, did we let somebody else in?
No, he did.
Did Alex not make
Your
it
whole
today?
Christmas episode was about some girl who had a board game stuck in her bedroom.
He completely missed all of that. I need you to go back and listen to the Christmas episode, sir. But anyway, I'm just saying.
3 times speed.
I'm definitely going back and listening to the Christmas episode now.
3 times speed. 3 times speed.
Really, really cool. Chris, thank you so much, man, for coming and hanging out with us. And I am serious.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, we want to definitely try if we can, because once things open up, there, we're trying to, it's all about making the connections, like you said, and building a community. So, sir, you are definitely on the map. We want to go somewhere where you are or come to you. We will make that happen.
We are literally your Vino Morte fan club. I mean, like, you are looking at president
Spread the word. Spread the word.
So
we'll do. We absolutely adore that game. We really do.
I appreciate it, man. That's great.
Yes, sir. I guess we've gotten to a wow.
Wow. Chris,
Which
you can say wow too.
Wow.
Yeah. I like his.
I think I'm gonna cut his and use his.
Yeah. It'll always be a third wow, and it's like, who is that? Oh, it's just Chris Anderson. You know, we know him.
But that's what we say, of course, when we get to the end of the show. Everybody, again, we are so grateful. I'm going to say to everybody right now who's listening, if you were not taking notes when we were going through, go on now and go back to the beginning to when Chris starts talking and start taking notes, particularly if you're a game designer. And I'm not even being funny, because I was. I don't know if Chris saw me typing. I was not working on the show. I was literally taking notes. There's so much good stuff, which is why I love having designers on here to talk to them, because it's something that we can learn, but that's what it's for. It's for everybody to be able to learn, and we get to share all the wisdom. So, Chris, we really appreciate you for that. And so, for the Spoken Token, this is Larry Neal saying, keep communicating.
And this is Alex Wallace saying, keep playing.
This has been the Spoken Token Podcast. If you would like to interact with us, please find us at Facebook at The Spoken Token, on Instagram at The Spoken Token Podcast. Our Twitter account is at The Spoken Token. Email is thespokentokenpodcast@gmail.com. And our BGG guild number is 2656.
You are listening to a Pod Studio One Podcast Network podcast. Find more great podcasts at www.podstudio1.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by the letter K.
Just got to have an outtake, don't you?
I do.
All right,
Why is that an outtake? It was perfect.
That's right. It's an intake. We're taking it.
I'll bring this back in. I'll put it at the end for the spoof reel.